You're with Pastorpedia. I read in a marathon magazine, what keeps a marathon runner going? 3 things on the national survey. Water, encouragement from others, and knowing there's a finish line. One of the issues of encouragement from others and assistance from others is that very person, the assistant in a church life. I know we're going to be talking to people of churches of all sizes, but we want to talk about using other people, an assistant, a secretary, volunteers, don't do it all yourself. Jim Brown, Jeff Bogue, thoughts on this? Every size church, we need to pass them things off, get people on the team.
I would agree what you said about, I've run a marathon, and those 2 things are true regarding encouragement and assistance along the way. What I found to be true for me personally, and I, by God's grace, I pastor all sizes of churches, but at every level, I realized that I can't do it alone, and I function better, and I can do more with more. You can go faster by yourself, but you can go farther with someone else.
Good.
And so you have to develop people around you. There's so many volunteers that are more gifted than I am that are waiting to be used. I look for them, I put them into action, and let them help the ministry that I'm serving.
Give away titles and responsibilities freely, and also in the office. Jeff.
I've never run a marathon. I have done marathon watching on Netflix, though.
That's good.
And also find that it's important to have assistance with that. When I think about an assistant, I'm probably thinking about my first teammate. So when I started into ministry, especially when we started our church, one of my things was I have to have an assistant out the gate, or I felt like I couldn't do what we needed to do. So my assistant is someone that I depend on heavily. They have been people that function as like a separate hard drive of my brain. So what I try to do is I try to turn over aspects of my ministry to them that they can know and manage. So my first assistant was an amazing lady named Debbie Keir. I used to call her the church Rolodex. And she would track all the people and all their needs, their family, their health issues, and keep it on my desk for me because I didn't have another pastor at the time. My assistant now, one of them is Terry Baird, and then I have a few. Laura Amon's another one. They'll do those kind of things. They'll own a piece of the ministry. Their job is not to execute it all. Their job is to keep it in front of me. So everything from my calendar to these aspects of things, because I just can't keep it straight anymore. So I view this as a huge asset. When I started in ministry, in youth ministry, we couldn't afford one. And I had stay-at-home moms, and one would volunteer on Monday, and one would another on Tuesday, another on Wednesday, and that's how I learned to segment that out so that we could do the ministry we needed to do.
I tell you, it's a huge need in many churches of all sizes to pass on. People love to feel needed. I do, you do, we do. Anyway, by the way, one of the best things I learned when I was going to say your age, but I mean way before that even, I do, we do, you do. Help people do it with you and then take it. But all right, talk about an assistant in the office during the week. These people came to the office one day each?
Yes, always. So even when they were volunteering, they would come to the office. They would answer the phone, which is a huge thing. Your assistant winds up being your voice.
Oh, yeah.
And so when people think of me, they are actually thinking of my assistant, Terry Baird, because she's kind and gracious, and I'm kind of a jerk. Right,
when I call for you, I always ask.
Yeah,
ask for the jerk.
I would rather talk with Terry, but they would come to the office. They would do everything from secretarial work. There's typing and filing, all that kind of stuff that needs to be done. But they would do a lot of contacting, and then keeping my schedule is an enormous part of what's going on. As the church got bigger and there was other staff, they would coordinate my interaction with that other staff and keep an eye on that. I also had assistants I had a couple of retired men. They would do our numerical projections for us. They would do our budget work for us, and they would do sermon research for me. And so we did this on a very broad scale, and it was incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
People love to help and to feel needed.
They do love to help, and they also, people, and I think one thing I have to be careful when it comes to assistance too, that people can't feel like they can get to you too. And we can also isolate ourselves, and I know Jeff does a really good job, but let them know, no matter who that is, help make sure that they understand you and they know you and they're reporting well from you. So when you do get an assistant, whether it's volunteer or whatever it are, make sure you know what they're saying. Make sure they're representing you and Christ well. And when that happens, man, it's a win-win situation.
And you have to have that synchronization. You have to work and train with that person, right? So just like you would develop a staff member or another leader, it takes a year, 18 months to really get in sync with your assistant so that the assistant knows. One of the things I wrote down is that your assistant should be a gatekeeper. So she knows what to delay, what to let right in, all those kind of things. And once you have that work, it's hard work. You have to communicate a bunch. But once you're in kind of that groove and you can do the no-look pass with your assistant, it's an amazingly helpful thing.
And straight talk. If something's wrong, you gotta, even if she's the wife of the board chairman, or it could be an intern or an apprentice who comes to your church and helps you, learns how you do things. React to this. You shouldn't do anything that somebody else can do as well. Details and other things.
Well, I think we have to keep what is hot on our plate, on our schedule, back to schedule. What is your primary function, role, and responsibility? Like, if you don't know what that is, you'll be doing everything. And we don't need messiahs. We need a team that's, a leader that's relying upon Christ. And so we need people in our lives that help us to put these other things and put it in the hands of people who can do it better, but allows us to focus on the most important thing. Keep the hot thing hot. For me, preaching and evangelism, leadership training, vision. I want to keep those things hot as a leader, as a pastor. So I want to have someone else that's helping me with these other things, auxiliary things around me. Otherwise, I'll be good at nothing. I'll be doing a whole bunch of things and not doing them well.
And if you do have staff to push some other things, staff that is in youth might be a great point person for sports too, or for prayer. Don't have everything on your desk and you only have one assistant and he does one little area.
Be willing to say no. I think too, that's probably hard for pastors. For many pastors,
it's not.
Yeah,
no.
And we need to be able to say no. I can't do this now. No, I don't have time for this right now. But someone else can help you. Be willing to say, don't allow the urgent to drive your ministry.
I found that one of the great roles of an assistant is that they can say no for me. And so if you ask me for an appointment, I'll usually say you need to email into the office because I don't keep my calendar. I actually don't know, just off the top of my head. And she can do a lot of the screening and things like that for me and say will you do my wedding? Will you do, well, I can't do all those things like I used to. So it's nice to have someone to say the no's for you.
I'm a little different than Jeff. I operate differently. I have assistants. I do keep my own calendar. I'm the one that I've always managed my calendar. But if I have a no to something, I'll run through our office assistants and have them let people know. But I manage my calendar. I put it in. They're asking me, do you have time? I function better that way. Both are appropriate and good, but I function by managing my own calendar. But I use assistants to make contacts, say, hey, this doesn't or that doesn't work. So.
My opinion, argue with it. Sometimes I don't think we make assistants varsity, or maybe a little bit of male chauvinism if she's a woman. We don't include them enough, or like they can't. Speak to that.
I agree with that. I think sometimes we have the Messiah complex. We feel like we should be doing it. Sometimes it's hard to, because pastors generally are gracious people, it's hard to look and say, your job is to help me so I don't have to do everything. So we feel like we're dumping when we're actually not. That's what they're there for. I think also, I really look at, I think one of the greatest untapped resources in an average church is a highly educated, highly professional woman who has come home for her kids. And she has this enormous ability, these enormous skills in the marketplace. And being a stay-at-home mom or having a part-time job, I think they're a gold mine to be tapped into. So recognizing, it doesn't really matter if they're a man or a woman, you recognize their skills and you look and say, man, they would be better at that, or they can be good enough at that I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's silly not to lean into that and take advantage of it.
I think there's indicators too, like pastors have to work with burnout. If the phone's ringing in your office and you're dreading it, if it becomes a burden to you, if you need assistance and volunteers in before it buries you. So they're indicators. If you're already feeling burned out, maybe you need to pull away and say, okay, I don't have the best assistant here. I need to change this assistant. I need to bring someone in. If you're feeling overwhelmed because of the structure that's already happened in the office play, it might be a good indicator that something's wrong too.
In any size church, I like the term special forces. There are some retired people who would love even a 10 to 15 hour a week job and a title and a responsibility, and who did it for Goodyear or for the office down the street, and who would love to help the church that way. Let's go after them and love them, but help them be a part of the team. Well,
you know, Jeff and Newt, another thing I try to do just for volunteer, whether it's volunteer staff or pastors or whatever size there is, in my case right now, one of the things I want to do is I don't want everyone looking to me for the answer. I don't want everyone like I'm the answer to everything. Instead of creating a pyramid where I'm at the top, Jesus should be at the top, I've tried to create a web. So if someone says, hey, I want to talk to a pastor, I'll say, well, I'm one of them. And trying to create this team as opposed to this dictator that's running everything. And when people begin to see that you're not the only answer, that there's other ways to get it, they'll go those other ways. And that's healthy. I just think it's healthy.
Yeah.
what size church should have an assistant in the office?
I would begin as soon as possible. I can remember leading a church of 60 people. Answering the phone became a burden. And so there had volunteers come in as a secretary that did that and helped and empowered them. I think right away you should begin thinking through that.
I would say it's your first hire.
I do. Yeah.
I believe that strongly. So your first hire, if you can't afford to hire it, then you go the volunteer route. But that should be your kind of your first order of business. And some of us who have smaller churches, it's the phone calls, but it's also getting the PowerPoint ready, running the copy, or all those kind of things, setting the stage up so that the band can plug in. Like, there are volunteer roles all through those. Those are just different forms of assistance. But as soon as possible, I would be surrounding yourself with that help.
We want to share the ministry. We say that from the text sometimes about everybody's a minister and we're all servants, deacons, that kind of the deaconess. But we just wanted to help on a very practical area. We don't think it's the major issue of church, but we think a major issue is that the pastor's not doing everything and that you're involving people in teamwork so that you can concentrate on the things you're especially good at. Thank you. You're with Pastorpedia. I'm Newt Larson, Jeff Bogue, Jim Brown. Glad to be a part. CE has a copy, a 4-page little instructions, I don't want to call them that, ideas for how to use an assistant. We'd love to send that, or if any of this helps, and we'll put out printed material. Thank you very much.